Hey, it's Greg from Cruiseco here, and I have Nicola Cagle from Micro Cruising, who'll be presenting a webinar on UnCruise Adventures, which is a nice new exclusive, or not exclusive product, but a nice new product which we have to Cruiseco members to be able to sell, and it is a very unique product. So if I'd like to hand over to Nicola and, start. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Much appreciated. Hi, everybody. I hope you got your cup of cocoa or coffee this morning, ready to go to Alaska, where we're going. We are very happy and fortunate to be partnering with Cruiseco to offer the UnCruise Adventures trips, which I'm sure you're all aware of, but we welcome you very much to speak to Cruiseco bookers in regards to all the UnCruise product. Also, another opportunity is for you to go online to the UnCruise website. We would also recommend that as well, because there is a lot of information on there with an idea of prices, ships, destinations, trips, that kind of thing. So just a bit of housekeeping. We'll be quoting in USD with the rate of the day, and let's move on now to UnCruise itself. So UnCruise was established in '97, quite a long time ago. She used to be Cruise West and Inner Sea Discoveries combined. And she has a fleet of 9 vessels carrying from 88 guests, and they go to 8 destinations. It is very much active cruising. It is also luxury cruising, and there is a heritage element as well to the cruising. So the target market that you're looking at is probably 45 to 65-year-old clients. So looking at where they go, so starting off in Alaska, the majority of the trips are in Alaska. That's the lion's share of their trips. Moving down the Pacific Northwest, so here are cruises around the San Juan Islands, so from Seattle down to the Columbia and Snake Rivers, which is Portland to Portland, down across the border to Mexico and the Baja Peninsula there, and Central America. Now, when it says Central America, we're talking about Costa Rica and Panama, the Panama Canal. They also go to the Galapagos and the Hawaiian Islands, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So the vessels either stay up in Alaska and they move down all the way down to the Galapagos and across to Hawaii. So looking at the times of year, so the Americans in their northern summer will go to Alaska. So you can see the majority of the kind of Alaska northern summer is there for Alaska. That's also the case for the Columbia and Snake Rivers and the Pacific Northwest as well. So the warmer climes, they'll stick to their areas in the north in Alaska, and then come their summer, they'd like to go down to the Hawaiian Islands, Mexico Sea of Cortez. Looking at Central America, it's kind of a year-round destination, it being equatorial, so the Galapagos and Central America tend to be more year-round destinations. So northern summer up in Alaska, northern winter in the warmer climes for the Americans across Mexico Sea of Cortez and the Hawaiian Islands. So looking at inclusions now, your group transfers from airport to vessel and vice versa. Actually, on the embarkation day and the disembarkation day are included. Should your clients want a few pre or post nights, if they're booked through the offer that the land packages and hotel packages that UnCruise offer, that is still included if it's not on the embarkation day or disembarkation day. So if they do a couple of days either side, they also get that transfer included as well, if it's booked through UnCruise. So most from the vessel adventure activities are included. I say most, I'll talk about that in a bit, as well as the equipment, the shore excursions, the fees to the national park, all meals and non-alcoholic beverages are included. There is a wellness program, and what wellness means is getting up at dawn for yoga. It is for some and not for others, but there's a wellness program there should clients want to embark on that. Also the onboard expedition and heritage guides, as well as any guest experts that they bring on the vessel in the particular regions, that's all included. Now, there are additional inclusions for certain vessels. I don't want to get bogged down in it, but the safari vessels, so the Safari Endeavour, the Safari Explorer, the Safari Quest, and the SS Legacy, I'll talk about them in a bit, but they have included premium wine, beer, liqueur, all of the on-boat adventure activities, all the ports, fees and taxes, and a complimentary massage, except for the Safari Quest. So there are more inclusions with the safari vessels, which we'll talk about soon. Looking at the exclusions, the gratuities, so typically 5 to 10%. We talked about the port fees and taxes. So on the wilderness vessels, they have, this is an exclusion, so it's about $500 per person, and any alcohol, again, on the wilderness vessels, whereas the safari vessels, it's included. So it's a bit tricky, but hopefully all the information is there for you to check this, to look at this up. So moving on to the vessels now. So Alaska itself has 6 vessels. These are the 3 wilderness vessels. So these are the green hull vessels. They are what I would describe as comfortable, as opposed to the safari vessels, which are very comfortable. The Discoverer, you'll see on the left-hand side, has 76 passengers. The Explorer on the right has 74, and the Adventurer at the bottom there has 66. So just to give you an idea of the interior, again, just a sample, you can see what it looks like here. There are no drinks packages on these vessels, certainly not included, but not to purchase. They are pub prices for wine, beer and spirits. There's also an option here, if clients want to, they can rent boots as well, the walking boots or the gum boots or wellies. The safari vessels here are the blue hull vessels. So on the left we have the Explorer, which has 36 passengers, the Quest on the right, which has 22, she's the smallest in the fleet, and the Endeavour on the bottom at 84. So these are much more comfortable vessels, as I said, very comfortable, higher end vessels, the blue hull vessels. So just a quick look inside of what to expect. As I mentioned before, included premium bar, a massage, except for the Quest, sauna on board of these vessels, and the rain boots as well are included. And the only thing you're paying on these vessels is the gratuity. The SS Legacy, so she is a little bit different. She's was refurbed a couple of years ago. She has 88 guests, and she's very much old world charm of the early turn of the century. She's a replica coastal steamer. She has notable features including carved wood cabinetry, period decor, a luxurious owner's suite where you can actually invite people in and have dinner in the owner's suite. It's very large. She has just 88 guests, but 27 crew members, and so it's a good crew to guest ratio. There are 2 hot tubs on board. There is also elevator access. It is available to 3 of the public decks, but not the owner's suite. So it is, you know, if you've got someone with mobility issues, it's important to note that it doesn't go to all decks. And it's very much travelling back in time. She's got a pressed tin roof. There's a pesky barnacles saloon in the back of the vessel which serves 2 things, beer and whiskey. The lead-in vessels, the commander vessels, they have twin fixed picture windows, so you know, still getting great views there. All the tours are included, and the difference if you have a group with this one is that there's 1 FOC berth per 10. Versus you know, other vessels which is more like 15. So if you've got group space for you know, there is an FOC option there for you. Moving on to the Safari Voyager, so she goes to Costa Rica and Panama. She is actually undergoing a refurb this year, and it's just 62 guests on board. So she's very comfortable, very much you know, high up on the amenities, upscale accommodation. You've got the windows that you'll see the windows are floor to ceiling, so they've got fantastic sweeping views, especially in the front lounge of the Wilderness. And it's got a cosy library, elegant dining room, all outfitted with natural decor, and you know, very much highlighting the natural surroundings. So there are 4 public decks, including a very spacious upper sun deck as well. And the La Pinta, this is the only vessel that they don't actually own, but they charter. She doesn't have a coloured hull, but she is just in the Galapagos. So she has 48 passengers. She's a beautiful yacht, very spacious cabins, again floor-to-ceiling windows, sophisticated yet relaxed. There's an outdoor jacuzzi, onboard adventure equipment, including snorkeling equipment, wetsuits, kayaks. There's a glass-bottom boat. Depending on the cabin, doubles or triples can be accommodated. There are 4 cabins that can be interconnected for families or groups travelling together, so that's important to note. It's the only vessel that does do the interconnecting cabins in the fleet. So moving on to the destinations, talking about Alaska first and foremost. So there are 11 itineraries in Alaska. They go from 7 nights to 21. And they're actually going from ports such as Ketchikan, Juneau, Sitka, or even Seattle. There's one trip that goes up the coast from Seattle, but that's a one-off trip. They're mostly within the Panhandle. And I know the bigger ships obviously go from, say, Seattle or Vancouver, but this is, you know, a little bit different in that certainly your embarkation port and your disembarkation port are probably the only ports you'll see, your guests will see on their voyage. So it's a matter of anchoring, going into the very small areas of, you know, the small inlets. And the guests here are from 22, the Quest which I talked about, up to 84. And, you know, it's all about uncommon, unexpected experiences. Excuse me. My throat's going on me. So looking at the areas, I'm not going to go into all of it because we could do another half an hour on it, but for example, places that include the Glacier Bay National Park. There are brown bears and black bears, there are rainforests and glaciers, humpback whales, orca, seabirds, and the options here are to kayak, to do paddle boarding, to explore by skiff or Zodiac as it's also known. There's even snorkeling options. You can see here there's hiking as well, or the option is just to relax. So the beauty is the guests can do as much or as little as they want. So the most popular itinerary of the 11 is probably the Discover Glacier Country, which has 2 full days in Glacier National Park, which is a bucket list destination. So it's, as far as I'm aware, you know, the bigger ships, they tend to spend maybe 4 hours in Glacier Bay National Park cruising around. But here you've got 2 days to kayak around, to hike to the foot of the glacier. They pick up the local Yogi Bear, the local ranger, as per their permits to be able to go to these smaller places, and the rangers on board to let everyone know about what it is they're seeing. There are also other itineraries such as the inner reaches of the Eastern Coves, which goes to Wrangell, the oldest town in Alaska with tribal houses, totem poles. Also the Western Coves with El Capitan, which is a cave, the first in southeast Alaska to have fossil bones discovered. So there's plenty of itineraries on offer. Moving on to the Pacific Northwest, so the Wilderness Discoverer vessel, so Wilderness, green hulled, kind of the lead-in ship, if you will, goes on the Explore trip on the right-hand side here. So it goes to see the Washington old-growth rainforest, winding channels, national parks, and the San Juan archipelago. On the left, the British Columbia's trip actually goes on the Safari Quest, so it's a safari vessel, the blue hulled higher end vessels, and she's just 22 passengers. It goes to Canada and the US, so it's all about the seaside towns, the Princess Louisa Inlet, the guests can have high tea in Victoria, and the San Juan Islands as well. So it's all about dramatic coastal scenery, wilderness, exploration. Interestingly, they actually have puffins in this area, which I didn't know about. So there are two options there to do the Pacific Northwest to and fro Seattle. Looking at the Columbia and Snake rivers, these are heavy on the Lewis and Clark history. So it's also about the wine country. It's about pioneering America. These are not soft adventures. These are for an older demographic, 55 to 75 years old. They are 7-night cruises that feature guest experts, heritage guides. There's wine tasting, also the ability to go to museums, forts and scenic parks. They, as soon as they step off the ship, they're on an air-conditioned bus and they're off for the day. So, and these coaches actually follow the vessel along the river. This is the only company that does Portland to Portland return cruises. There are wine-themed cruises. So on the left you'll see the Ameritage. This is the current one selling from April to October. Now I don't want to confuse you too much, but the one on the right, the Rivers of Wine, that's the essentially the trip that we'll be taking over from Ameritage. It's a very similar itinerary, but from I think it is April next year onwards, it's going to be the Rivers of Wine. So the Rivers of Wine, I mean there are 4,000 wineries between Oregon and Washington. They don't go to all of them. They probably go to about 9 on the winery itinerary, but with the Legacy of Discovery itinerary there's just a couple of wineries that they go to there. But on the Legacy Discovery, which is really the #1 most popular trip, they have 8 locks and dams that it goes through. They go to Clarkston where they turn around. There's a Hells Canyon jet boat tour. There are actors on board for infotainment, and they do skits before dinner bringing actual characters, real people of the era back to life. I mentioned the Bonneville Dam, the power generation facility, Fort Clatsop with the Lewis and Clark where they spent the winter there. There'll be musical jazz on board, 1940s performances, little bugle boy style performances, and this one is also inclusive of bar massage and all the port calls. Costa Rica and Panama. So there are 4 itineraries on the Safari Voyager. So this is the more high-end blue hull Safari Voyager. It starts in October this year and goes till December, so there's just a couple of months in the season. So it's 7 nights or 15 nights. So the options here are, there's a 7-night and 8-night, combine those and you get the 15-night itinerary. And after April next year, they'll be including a 1-night stay in the itinerary. So all of these itineraries, they transit the Panama Canal, so it's very much a tick box on the bucket list to do the Panama Canal for most, so it's definitely included. There are things like humpback whales. There are 3 national parks. One is a World Heritage and one is a wildlife refuge. There are mangrove tours via the skiff, which is the Zodiac, and also opportunities for snorkeling, kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, nature walks. It's best enjoyed if clients have good health, so they're fit and able to enjoy a comfortable pace with moderate walks. There may be uneven terrain and it may be slippery. So that's important to note when you're selling the Costa Rica and Panama trips. On board currency is either Costa Rican colones or US dollars, also known as balboas, in Panama, or credit cards. So that's just a bit of housekeeping there. Moving to the Galapagos now, we have, with these 2 itineraries, 2 nights are included in Quito. So it's actually a round trip to Quito, Ecuador. The stay is at their Casa Gangotina, built in 1946. She's a #1 hotel on TripAdvisor and very much in the colonial centre of Quito. There is a private dinner at the Premier restaurant there in Quito, and then guests fly into San Cristobal. So I don't need to tell you about the Galapagos. There's snorkeling with Galapagos penguins and sea lions. There's on these trips 2 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, not only the Galapagos Islands, but Quito, the colonial centre where the guests will be staying, is also a World Heritage Site. So I hope it gives you a bit of an idea. So it's 8 and 9 night itineraries, round trip Ecuador. Moving on to Hawaii now. So we have the Safari Explorer. So the Safari vessel is the blue-hulled vessel, so higher end. She is going to the islands from Molokai down to Hawaii, or reverse. And these miles are about, these islands are 5 miles apart. The option here is to do things like snorkeling at night with the manta ray. They have paina feasts with the Molokai locals. Clients can learn to hula during jam sessions with the local musicians. They go to Halawa Valley, which is believed to be, at least to the ancient Polynesians, as a settlement as early as 650 AD. Also walking along the windswept volcanic cliffs overlooking the Pacific Ocean views. It's quite reasonably priced as well for 7 nights if you consider what you'd ordinarily pay at a Hawaii hotel with all your inclusions. So it's very reasonably priced, very competitive if you want to compare it to hotels staying in Hawaii. So the Baja Bounty. So this is the Sea of Cortez going from November to March this season, and then next year it'll be just January to March. Now, you'll see here you fly into San Jose and there is a transfer. So this transfer, the boat's actually in La Paz. It just worked out much easier if it was a 2-hour transfer to the vessel. But certainly the trip starts in San Jose del Cabo. This vessel is a Safari Endeavour, so Safari, higher end, blue-hulled vessel. And it's very much island hopping. It has wildlife, great for birders with the boobies, the pelicans, the frigate birds. There are humpbacks, grey whales, pilot whales, blue whales, even whale sharks, dolphins and sea lions. So the options here are to paddle, to even hike along the desert landscape, snorkeling with sea lion pups, ride a burro, which I believe is like a donkey, into the areas here with the local rancheros, and also discover how small the human presence is in this part of the Baja Peninsula. And there's also an opportunity to see calving blue whales in Bahia Magdalena as well. Again, reasonably priced for 7 nights for $3,000 US. And just finishing up, we'll be talking a bit about the themed cruises. So there are options for marine biology themed cruises in Alaska and in Mexico, photography themed cruises in Alaska, Central America and Mexico, birding in obviously Mexico, but also Washington and Central America. There's entertainment cruises, so the Columbia, I talked about the vignettes that they perform, so that's a very much entertainment themed cruise with smooth jazz artists and 1940s nostalgia harmonies. The wine themed cruises I talked about with the Columbia and Snake Rivers, the exploration themed cruises of Lewis and Clark in the Columbia and Snake Rivers. They also have Chairman's Cruise, which is guests can get to know the leaders of UnCruise, which is most of the destinations. The craft beer themed cruises, so it's very much a brewer's guide to barley and hops, and this is in the Pacific Northwest. There'll be tasting presentations. Sounds like my kind of cruise. Also national parks and centennial celebrations. So this year is commemorating the 100th year of the national parks on selected Alaska departures that sail into Glacier Bay during August, and it was back in 1916 when this act was signed. Lastly, I just wanted to touch on family discovery. So Kids 8 years and older are welcome on board on most vessels and destinations. Kids aged 8 to 13 have a saving of $500 per child, except for December trips. The exceptions can be granted for kids who are under 8 years old, but there is special approval needed for that. The Safari Quest, for example, they welcome children ages 13 and younger, but only on private charters, not on the regular cruises. So things on board include playing I Spy, playing cards, asking the captain 20 questions on the bridge, polar bear plunges, paddle boarding with the family, paddleboard races, tide pool treasure hunts, painting faces with glacial mud. So there are things to do, but it's important to note it's very different to the big ships in that parents and guardians need to maintain guidance and responsibility of children at all times. So there are no childcare services available as such. So they're 100% responsible for their kids, but there will be activities for kids. So I hope that gives a bit of an overview of UnCruise, very short indeed. I could do a whole talk just on Alaska itself, but it gives you an idea of all the destinations, the types of vessels. As I said, the website is fantastic to find out information, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to hear them. Are you there, Greg?
I am here. No, thank you very much, Nicola, for that. I'm just waiting to see if
That's
there's
right.
any questions. If anyone has any questions, they can type them into the box on the right-hand side. Otherwise,
Great.
yes, it's a great product there. It's something unique and different that can be booked through Cruiseco with UnCruise Adventures there. So thank you very much, Nicola.
Not a problem. Happy to help.